If you have any appointments on the calendar today or this week, I hope you're watching this before that. And do not take a single patient in as a nurse practitioner, solo esthetician, injector, Medspa owner before you watch this, because it will change the way you sell forever. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're here, welcome. And if you're one of my return viewers, I appreciate you. I see you, and I'm here to serve you with our best experience here at Medspa Patients. So we've helped Medspas, over 100 Medspas at this point for the last 2 years, get anywhere between 20 and 120k in new monthly revenue. And the way we do this is we do the marketing, so we generate the leads, and then we also do the sales. We generate the appointments directly in their calendars. Objections and sales in particular is a topic that's really dear to me. In fact, it's probably the number one thing that lights me up. And the reason for that is paradoxically because it is the one thing that I thought I struggled with for the longest time. I say I thought because I was too afraid to even dive into it. And so if you're one of those people who is kind of labeling sales as something big and scary, and that's not you, your personality, because I know for a fact I'm an introvert and I always thought that that's not me, it's not my thing. Well, then the thing that I'm going to say to you next, and you don't even need to watch this whole video, you can just watch the next 1 minute, is going to completely shift the way you look at sales for the better. And so if you have any appointments on the calendar today or this week, I hope you're watching this before that. And do not take a single patient in as a nurse practitioner, solo esthetician, injector, Medspa owner before you watch this, because it will change the way you sell forever. So the number one thing that I want to relate to you when it comes to objection handling is that whenever you hear your biggest three, which are I don't have the money, I need to think about it, it's too expensive, it's cheaper elsewhere, I want to talk to my spouse. I know that wasn't three, that was more like five, but really there are three categories. The categories are stalling objection, which is I need to think about it, I need to pray on it, I need to speak to my spouse. The next objection is it's too expensive, the money objection. And then the other one is just logistical features. How does it work? How many sessions do I need? What is the downtime? That one's the easiest one to handle. But I wager that the biggest ones that you always hear is I got to think about it, I got to speak to someone about it, and it's too expensive, or it was cheaper elsewhere. I'm going to dive into an entire plethora of techniques that are going to really chunk this down, chunk it up, explain it, break it down, reframe it, flip it on all facets. But before you even go there, just understand, when someone says it's too expensive, when they say I need to think about it, that is not a no. That is a mere hesitation. It's a little gap. There's a little thing there that's stopping them from pushing forward. If they didn't want it, they would have said no, walk out. They're still in front of you. It's almost like they're sheepishly asking you to pull them in, to reel them in, to give them a little something to unlock them there, right? And so if you hear it's too expensive, in what way though? I need to think about it. How so? What about specifically? Now, of course, this video is 15-20 minutes long, however, whatever length it ends up being, because there is some finesse to how you can say these things. And I'm going to dive into those things now. I'm going to share my screen. I want you to pay attention, lean in. I recorded it very late at night, so it might come across as a bit slow, but there is profundity to those lines. And not because I said them, they're down to ChatGPT, okay, with Claude actually, but they are reflecting the reality of what we've seen in Medspas and in Medspa owners who have struggled with these things for the longest time, and they are responsible for generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in upsells for each of these Medspas. Let's dive in. This is super specific. This is something that we've seen times and time again, especially when you do a low ticket introductory service, such as a Botox, such as a body contouring 99, 149, whatever it may be. A laser hair removal session. This is one of the most effective ways to advertise on Meta to get patients in through the doors, because it's try before you fully buy. The problem with it is that people can come in and sometimes get a sticker shock when they find out that that is actually part of a bigger treatment, of a bigger package. But it's still one of the most effective ways to get people in, because it gets that friction distributed. Imagine someone sees you in Meta, they come from a ad on Facebook, they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't like you. And so the fact that it's a 99 or a 149 or a 199 is the thing that's combating all of that and gets them in the door in the first place. But when they do come in, this is what they're starting to say. You're telling me one session isn't enough. I'm not going to see results with one session. What's the point? 30 units should be enough for my whole face. You're just upselling. Not so much. They wouldn't really call it out like that. You're telling me I need to pay more? Yes, without that, that's ridiculous. I'd say that that's a bit of an exaggeration. Bait and switch, never heard that one either. It's important to create ads that are not disingenuous. It is important to not bait and switch. This is not about luring people in with a low ticket price and promising them that they're going to achieve permanent results with that. No, it's about getting them in with a full knowledge and understanding that this is their chance to get to know you and your chance to get to see them and console them. It's kind of like when you take your car to the garage, right? If you're taking for an oil swap and a check, just a thorough check of the entire status, the status of everything on it, then you're not going to be surprised if it comes back with, I don't know, worn out brake pads, brake discs, or I don't know, some rubber gaskets on the what do you call it, the engine. You get it. You get the point. I'm not a mechanic. I don't think you are one either. And so the simplest way to look at that is you cannot tell how many units of balls someone's going to need if they came in with a bag over the head. It's exactly the same thing with someone who you're speaking to over the phone. And so that is the underlying mindset shift that's required in order to be able to handle these objections flawlessly and with integrity, with fairness. Now I'm going to show you what the likes of Cole Gordon, Jeremy Miner, Alex Hormozy use in order to handle these. These are top salespeople, and their techniques are proven in the local lead gen space, local appointment booking space, across a multitude of niches. So this stuff works, and we've tested this. Most of our Medspa partners get extremely excited about these techniques and about these, let's call them rhetorics, because they're just formulations of ways to address clients that are proven to persuade, to influence, okay? And so the core idea here is to never argue with an objection. You have to agree with it, reframe it, show the gap between where they are and where they want to be. What is this? This is gap selling. People typically have a gap between the problem that they're looking to solve and the solution that they're looking to achieve, the dream state. Jeremy Miner, he is very heavy on tone inflection, on the non-verbals behind the actual things that are being said, how it's being said. Concerned, curious, ask questions that make them realize the truth. That is basically the rhetorics, the Socratic method, essentially. Create problem awareness. And then Cole Gordon, he's actually a student of Jeremy Miner. He goes on frame control, pattern interrupts, future pacing, identity level selling. I'll get to these in a second. But let's look at a perfect example. Laser hair removal, one session should work. So the way Miner would address it would be, I totally get why you'd think that. And honestly, if one session worked, we'd only charge you for one session, right? Can I ask you something? When you're shaving right now, have you noticed the hair comes back at different rates? Like some patches grow faster than others. That's an answer. That's going to be a yes, unanimously, right? So that's because your hair grows in cycles. About 80% of your hair is actually sleeping under the skin right now. So if we treated you today with only hit the 20% that's active, okay? And so if we only treated 20% of your hair, will that get you to where you actually want to be? Or would you be frustrated that you still have to shave most areas? So that's the way to combat the one session objection. Let's look at a second way of doing it, an identity shift. Some of these might be a bit far-fetched. I'll be the first to admit it. A bit identity shift feels like it's a bit too out there, right? For something as simple as laser hair removal, but it's not about the laser hair removal. It's about how people make decisions, okay? And so, yeah, you're right, the first session is 99. So far, so true. And I'm not going to lie to you, you could just do one session. But the people who do one session and leave, they're the same who post 6 months that it doesn't work because they're still shaving. In fact, you've probably had your own clients come in who have had laser hair removal in the past, and they look like they never had it in their life. Because they didn't stick with it, because maybe the technique wasn't right. There could be a myriad of reasons, but the principle stands. And so the people who actually stop shaving, wake up with smooth skin and never think about razors again, those are the people who understand this is an 8-10 sessions process to catch all the hair cycles. So this is the identity piece. It's like, those are the people who get it. And so do you want to be someone who tried it, or do you want to be someone who's actually done it and it's good? Because there's a big difference between these two outcomes. This is the identity shift. It's reframing it for them to look at it through the lens of someone who gets it and who's actually achieving the end outcome. That's actually a bit of future pacing there as well. Which, speaking of, we're going into future pacing purely with Cole Gordon. And so that is basically having them visualize themselves into a future where the outcome is not realized, where they're still struggling with the same pain. Totally fair. Let's play it out. You do the one session today for $99. 3 weeks from now, you'll notice some areas are smooth, but most hair grows back because we only hit 20% of follicles. Now you're in this weird spot where you spent $99, you're still shaving, you're probably annoyed because it didn't work. This is deliberately chosen as language to future pace to really accentuate the feeling of frustration. You spend $99, you're still shaving, you're probably annoyed because it didn't work. It's like the repetitiveness of it, the cadence. Obviously, this is like the top 1% of detail to pay attention to. In this case, it's more about the way it's formulated, the whole argument. Or we map out the full 8 sessions, you committed the process, and 9 months from now, you're the person who never has to think about shaving again. You're wearing whatever you want, whenever you want, zero maintenance. Which of them do you actually want to be? Which of them do you actually want to be? So tonality is pretty important about these things. Tonality and confidence, because the confidence that you exude is oftentimes going to preempt some of these objections before they're ever voiced. If you go in confidently and you are leading this conversation, the interaction, very seldom are you going to find someone who's actually going to push back actively, because they're kind of trusting your authority and they're going on that journey with you. And so similar examples for body contouring, one session should show results. Again, this is a what are you here for? Are you here for a quick fix, or are you here for more of a permanent, long-lasting transformation? And so again, Hormozy with his gap selling, let me tell you, one session will do. You will see results. No one says that you won't see results. When we book appointments, for example, we say results may vary. We don't really say results do vary from person to person, because that's pretty weak, and people like specificity and again, a confident answer. And a more confident answer is patients lose anywhere between 1 and 2.5 inches in one session. Notice how this is not saying you will lose. It's patients do lose anywhere between this and that. It's possible, but it's not a promise and it's not a guarantee. And so some people notice their pants fit a little better, okay? But here's the thing, nobody comes in here wanting to look 20% better. They want to look 100% better. They want the fat one. They want to fit in their old jeans. They want to feel confident at the beach, okay? So technically, yeah, one session does something, but does that get you to your actual goal? And then here, I would say, don't even say no. Let them say it. This here is super important. I'll get to this in a second with Terry Ross's technique. It's even more powerful if you did your discovery beforehand, meaning you got them to say what their goal is, because now you'll be able to call that back based on what you told me, you wanted to achieve. Because people hear and listen to what they say and trust what they say, and then they listen and trust almost nothing that you say. And so based on what you told me, this isn't going to get you to the goal that you're looking to achieve. And so that takes 6 to 8 sessions. The question is, do you want to spend $149 to see a tiny change, or do you want the actual results you came in for? I don't know that I would say nobody else will notice. This feels a bit coercive, but I would put it more like, so do you want to get a quick fix, or do you want to get a permanent, long-lasting transformation? And in fact, you shouldn't even have to ask the question, because you already asked it before in the discovery, okay? That is the tie down. I'll get to that in a sec. Or maybe I'll do an elaborate video on this in a separate session, because the tie down as a sales process is literally one of the most powerful techniques that you will ever use. So I want to give it the respect and the time that it deserves. And so another one here from Cole Gordon. Again, this is a pattern interrupt and a reframe. It's about going back into the pain point. You saw yourself in the mirror. You were like, I need to do something about this. Let them confirm it. You've probably been feeling this way for what, months, years? And so my question is, if this took months or years to develop, how would one session fix it? If it didn't get created in one day, then it's not going to get fixed in one day. Okay, this is kind of like the pattern interrupt there. It sort of hijacks the automatic response. and it shows the flaw in the logic. I'm not trying to be harsh. People who get life-changing results, they're the ones who understand that undoing months of storage takes consistent treatments. And so that some of these things you can basically cherry pick and use straight away. And then minor, again, goes back to the problem awareness. So it aggravates and it accentuates the pain. What made you finally decide to come in today? What's been bothering you about this area? And how long has that been an issue? This is a discovery piece. Okay. And then again, that same argument. Does it make sense that 1 hour of treatment would completely reverse that? Right. So if we did one session and you left, and 4 weeks from now you're looking in the mirror and it's basically the same, how would you feel? And exactly. So it wouldn't make more sense to do this right way from the start to actually get the results you came in for, and so on and so forth. The same applies to Botox with 30 units for an introductory, $300, $400, for example. Some people with very shallow wrinkles, younger ones, may get away with 30. The reality is most of them are going to need more units. Again, it's about the education piece and the reframe, again, from all three of their angles. The key patterns across all of them are to not defend the price, to agree that it's a gap and show that the gap, why the gap exists. It's basically not fighting back with their objection. Future pays the regret. So basically you don't actually have to answer every question with its answer. You can just deflect into a place where instead of answering the question, you can basically chunk up to what that means. What I mean by that, future pays the regret. How will you feel when months down the line you still haven't got this resolved? Because then you get patients to convince themselves, to persuade themselves. Identity framing, super important. Do you want to be the person who's achieved the outcome or the one who's still struggling years down the line? Especially if you have already struggled for this a number of days, months, years. Create problem awareness. Make them say why one session won't work, rhetoric, like we said, and remove yourself as the enemy. So this is not about you against them. It's about both of you trying to solve this problem together. Okay, so now let's go to Terry Ross and wrap up with that. Okay, so Terry Ross has done a ton of corporate selling. She has a podcast. You can look her up. She's pretty awesome. The things I want to focus on here are the principles. Again, never justify the price. You're the expert, period. Do an assumptive close. Always assume that they're moving forward. And so this is simple tactics on that are, it's not, are you ready and do you want to pay for this with a payment plan? It's not a question that gets a yes or a no answer. It's not, do you want to go forward with us today? No, it's assuming the close, assuming that they already said yes, and now we're working through the logistics, which is, would this be cash, card, or a payment plan? So one of those three options. There is no alternative here. There is no possibility for them saying no. Hospitality over hard selling essentially means being consultative, means going through the discovery process, figuring out exactly what it is that they want. Why does that work? Because, I mean, imagine you're going to the doctor and you're saying you're suffering, you've got a pain, you're not saying what it is, and then suddenly they give you, here's your medication, go. You won't take that, will you? Because you don't feel like you've been consulted. It doesn't apply to you. So that's what consultative means in the plainest and simplest form. Premium positioning, our clients understand. Again, this is about the identity shift we spoke about before. Education creates obligation. The more you teach, the more they trust. It's just reciprocity. It's just building that rapport. It's just gaining their trust and also preempting their objections before they actually occur, which is why I said earlier in the video, objections like, does it hurt? Does it sting? How long does it take to recover, etc.? Those ones are pretty easy to address, because when people want an outcome, they'll put up with those things if you give them the reassurance that all of those things are reversible, temporary, and not that painful or risky. After all, it's non-invasive, it's non-surgical, no needles, no insertions. That's the benefits of Medspa services, right? And so silence is power, which I just did now. Obviously, I attempted to demonstrate that silence is power. When you give people a gap, they'll fill in that silence because people are uncomfortable with sitting in silence. You mustn't be the one that's riffing and rambling and not giving room for silence, because in the silence, when you wait, people close themselves. I have closed countless clients on pauses when you just drop the price and then you just sit in silence. Our Medspa partners have closed hundreds of packages by just sitting in silence with the price being presented. Take it. And so silences are just as important as talking. It's the negative space between the words. Clients who see results, again, that's the identity thing. And so here we just have the examples of how she would go about that. For laser, we've already done it. The premium positioning, one session should do the show the results. Clients who see the results, 30 units. Let's focus on the Botox, because we haven't attacked this one before. And a lot of clients are injectors, solo injectors, and practitioners, and they struggle. They struggle with upselling, with cross-selling, with order bumping to increase the average order value, and so the angle here is acknowledge. I love that you're thinking about this, and let me explain why that's not actually going to give you the result you want. I won't even say but, because that's dismissive. I'd say and let me explain why that's not going to give you the result you want, and then it kind of does a bit of education, how many units you need for your glabella, the 11s between your brows. If we spread those, then you're getting about 10 units per area. That's not enough to relax the muscle, whatever. That's the technical piece there. Again, pause, because they need time to take it in. What happens is you spend money, you're not achieving the outcome. And so what we're going to do, and then again, we're leading and we're assuming the close. We'll treat you with the 30 lines, with the 30 units, and when you come back and you're obsessed with how that area looks, we'll add your forehead and crow's feet. So you can try to do a 2-step close. You do the rest of it in the retouch. Okay. Another way is the premium positioning, which is, this is a bit too salesy. I'll be the first to admit this is probably not the way I would try and do this here. Ultimately, the biggest argument here is you need to consult in order to diagnose how many units someone actually needs, and if they're looking for a long-lasting effect based on your expertise and based on the fact that they're now in front of you, you are now analyzing exactly what units they need, where typically they might need 4 or 5 for a lip flip, 8 on the sides of their crow's feet, maybe 20 around the forehead. There will be a order bump required. They will need potentially 10, 20 more units than the ones that had kind of come in 4. And so telling them that they're going to leave disappointed. In fact, I'll say this is the way not to do it. I would not do it this way. I would not tell them how they feel. I would not tell them that we're doing it this way and that way, because again, we need to get them to convince themselves. Okay, so some of these examples may not be the most coherent, the most powerful ways of persuading, simply because they're sticking too strictly to the response pattern, but it doesn't make them entirely useless. Okay, they're not losing their value entirely, because fundamentally the principle behind them, they stay. And so let's go straight to the patterns here. And so those patterns, again, let me tell you what I've seen in this practice. Let me tell you about Sally and Susie, who are just like you and they've achieved this outcome. That is a foil, by the way. It means I'm not going to tell you what you need. I'm going to tell you what Sally needed. And Sally is 30 years old and she's blonde and young, just like you. Or Michelle, who's 60 and she was here yesterday and she's exactly like you. Let me tell you what I've seen with her. And that is the foil. That is how we diffuse the pressure of selling to this person and making them feel like they're put on the spot and that they're being addressed and confronted. And so instead we use the side, which, by the way, in case you're wondering, fun fact, cool tip, when they say I need to speak to my spouse, that is also a foil. They're throwing in the spouse because they don't want to admit, they're uncomfortable admitting that they think it's too expensive, it's not sure if it's going to work, whatever other objections they may have. And so instead they say the husband, the spouse, whoever that may be. And that's crucial to understand, because whenever you hear those kinds of objections, you want to address the spouse in a way where you kind of say, cool, so what do they think? Do they know that you're here? Do they want you to achieve the result that you said that you want to? If they were here, would they support you, do you think? And so on and so forth. So you speak to the spouse, you speak to the foil rather than to them personally. And so this is it. This is a free rant on objection handling and sales frameworks and patterns of thinking and rhetorics and persuasion from some of the biggest personalities in the sales space who I've been studying pretty relentlessly for the past few years. And believe me, I didn't know how to sell at all before selling hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing services and thousands of booked appointments for our clients. This is just feeling like second nature, and it's landing and it's hitting the more you study it. So I recommend that you study it, and most importantly, that you open your mind to these possibilities in case you didn't consider them before. Because the Medspa partners that we work with who are hitting six figures consistently, they're the ones who get excited when they see this stuff and they nerd over it and they see the potential in it. And every time there's an objection, they treat it as a personal challenge to see how they can dispel that. Not in a way where it's we need to persuade, we need to win over our patients, but it's more from a service giving perspective, from a how shall I say this, from a courtesy place, where essentially you see yourself as someone who's doing a service and a favor to the patient who comes in disillusioned or misled or confused or uneducated or crowded with a bunch of limiting beliefs that have held them in the past from achieving what they're looking to achieve. And so you're doing actually them a service. I don't know why there's such a bad rep around selling and salespeople. It's probably because it's perceived as manipulation as opposed to the way I like to look at it, which is more of a coaching standpoint. You are essentially a coach to that person. They entrust you, and so you can sway them in a direction that's mutually beneficial for them, for you as a business. Passion, purpose, and profit can come together. But that's it. Rant over. I hope this is useful, and until next time, good luck selling.